am with Rich Fernandez from the Search Inside Yourself Leadership Institute at Wisdom 2.0 conference, and I want to welcome you and let you talk a little bit about what you do.
Sure, thanks. Great to be here.
Yeah.
So the Search Inside Yourself Leadership Institute, kind of a funny name, was actually born at Google. So that's the idea of search, but inside yourself.
Okay.
And so we teach mindfulness and emotional intelligence, make it practical and accessible by connecting it to science, neuroscience in particular, and try to drive the outcome of emotional intelligence. So this was a curriculum that was developed at Google, initially for Google engineers.
Right.
I used to work at Google. I used to head the executive education function at Google, which is senior leader development for Google leaders. And one of the things we noticed was the importance of emotional intelligence as a skill set that you could build.
Right.
And as we did research on this, research into things like brain plasticity, the ability of the brain to change itself based on the mental habits that are exercised, we found a whole suite of mental habits that you could train that really have to do with what has been referred to as mindfulness, but really it's about training attention, focus, innovative thinking, creative thinking. And so we put together this Search Inside Yourself curriculum at Google. Subsequently, we got permission from Google to spin off a separate nonprofit organization called the Search Inside Yourself Leadership Institute, or SILI for short, SIYLI. And now we provide that same curriculum for communities and organizations around the world.
It's amazing. Yeah. So was it really hard to get this approved through Google?
Not at all.
Started?
No,
Okay.
because Google, especially at that time, had an ethos of wanting to kind of share a lot of the best practices they had. Currently, you see that on the website. It's called Rework, R-E-Work.
Yeah.
And also at that time we had published a study around what makes effective management, which is called Project Oxygen, and we kind of put that out to the world. Similarly with Project Aristotle, which has to do with psychological safety. So at the time, this idea that thousands of Google employees are really enjoying the benefits of the SIY curriculum, and that idea that we could share it with the world by creating an institute, a standalone institute that would offer that to other organizations, actually had a lot of appeal for it. It made a lot of sense. So that's where we are today.
Yeah. So now that you're going into other businesses and organizations, what creates them wanting you to come in the first place?
Yeah.
What are they looking for? What's the ROI of having you come into an organization?
Absolutely. Well, so it really makes sense from an ROI perspective to build the skills that will help people succeed in their roles and across teams. Mm-hmm. And one of the core things that we now know based on research that really impacts effectiveness and performance is emotional intelligence, which is the ability to work effectively across relationships and even on yourself, with yourself, when you're experiencing stress and major challenges that any person in business, and especially entrepreneurs, but also people in big companies, they experience this all the time.
Right.
So what is the skill set? What is the toolbox that will help people really practically navigate the daily grind, the daily challenges, and what more, not only deal with their own kind of experience around that, like stress and all that, but then be an effective team member and work across functions or externally to work effectively with customers. So again, we developed this curriculum, this mindfulness-based emotional intelligence curriculum based on neuroscience to build those useful mental habits. The ROI then is when we found people have gone through our curriculum, and we literally, teach tens of thousands of people every year across 40 countries, many different types of industries, and organizations large and small. But we have a few case studies where we've really looked at thousands of employees and seen the effects of building EI and mindfulness skills. And for example, in one of our major tech company clients, we see that mindfulness emotional intelligence improves innovation, well-being, employee engagement, effective communication, and decreases stress, for example, all of which have really strong positive outcomes in terms of ROI. So one very specific example, you improve you take stress down and improve people's well-being. And in this one German, it's a global enterprise software company, SAP.
Yeah.
What they're seeing is that like our curriculum on mindfulness improves engagement by 6.5%, and every 1% increase improves operating profit by about 60 million euro a year. And our program improves well-being by 9.2%. Every 1 point increase in well-being improves operating profit by 85 to 95 million euro. So there's like a real dollar value to and return to people who run this curriculum.
Yeah, and so when you say well-being, a lot of times we don't take care of ourselves in business. We're running around, we're stressed out, too many demands. And that creates health impacts as well. Yeah. So talk a little bit about that, because I think, a lot of times when we talk about mindfulness, I think people don't think about the health benefits at the same time in that arm of well-being.
Yeah. Well, certainly there's the health benefits and, the outcomes there. But actually the way we come at it is looking more at the benefits of maintaining your sanity and not being overly stressed when you confront the crazy, busy world that we confront. Mm-hmm. We have this notion of what's called the VUCA world, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. It's another way of saying like complexity is increasing, demands are increasing, velocity is increasing, kind of the global nature, the 24/7 nature of what we do. All of that is accelerating. So how do we then have the skills to meet the challenges that come with that? Yeah. And so really it's about building the mental habits that are trainable and that literally change our brain to meet those challenges. And that's how we understand mindfulness. Right. We understand mindfulness not as kind of like lighting incense and levitating, but as a set of useful mental habits that affect changes in the brain, specifically the structure and function of certain neural networks and even neural tissue, because you can increase your gray matter density. You can grow gray matter through these practices, which are mental habits, rather than anything else. So that is the way we position and teach the skills, because we do this in a business setting. Yeah. So and by the way, they do have carryover effects in terms of your physical health, your personal relationships, being able to sleep better, so personal transformation. Talk to people you care about in your life. Be more, they say present, but like direct your attention more effectively and sustain it. Mm-hmm. So there are carryover life benefits, but we really have a sort of business-focused approach to the training of these skills.
Sure. So, a lot of entrepreneurs, when you take on a business, you do it because of passion. You're really excited about the idea of what you're creating, but soon, whether it's a tech startup, whether it's a mom and pop shop down the street, you're dealing with all these other things that you didn't expect to deal with in order to run the business. And now we're going to tell them, well, you should implement mindfulness on top of all of that. Yeah. So why should they do it? And what would be the first step there? Right.
So what I would say is that the first thing is to actually bust the myth that it's additive. Mm-hmm. What I'd rather say it's integrative, which means that you don't have to do it on top of everything else. Right. It's not another thing you're adding to your plate. The initial threshold, yes, it would be good to get like we have 16 hours of skill building. After that, it weaves into the way you conduct your meetings, the way you answer your emails, the way you kind of eat your meals, and it becomes an integrated practice or part of what your normal workday is. Mm-hmm. And then if you like, you can do the extra stuff, like having a special time and place for meditation or taking certain things like mindful walks and so forth. But this is really about how to integrate mindfulness into the rhythms and routines of life.
Creating boundaries.
Creating boundaries is one, like prioritizing and using those skills to know what's urgent versus what's important, sorting that, it helps with all of those things because it helps kind of like turn down the volume such that you're able to better distinguish the signal from the noise. Yeah. If that makes any sense. Yeah, it's a state of mental focus and clarity that is a benefit of mindfulness and emotional intelligence training. And that's something that people have on an ongoing basis that's not extra. What is extra is that you need to get to training, right? So like if you want to be physically fit, you need to put a little bit of time into that. But you can still do that by taking the stairs and, kind of like walking to work or biking to work. And that's how we aspire to build it in, is to kind of weave it in a really practical way that doesn't disrupt or add to your patterns. And especially for, people who have small businesses, for entrepreneurs. I've had one myself. After I left Google, I launched a small company called Wisdom Labs. And, it's a very volatile experience. Like you said, you start with passion and you have incredible moments, and then you have incredible stress and, fear and and not just emotions, like dollar tagged to like the diminishing cash reserve you see kind of dwindling as you're making the investment in building the business. And so there's this great quote, I think, from Jack Canfield that says, after the ecstasy, the laundry. So when you have to do a lot of laundry on a regular basis, how can you do it with the right mindset so that you actually learn from the experience and it helps you kind of get up again to that place where you are super motivated, super passionate, and can sustain that.
So what has worked? Like when you go into an organization, what are some key characteristics of making sure the program works and sustains?
So first of all, how it's presented and its goals have to be aligned with the priorities of the organization. And it's very important to work with the leaders or the stakeholders in the organization. So in some organizations, innovation is the key thing they're trying to do. In other organizations, it's high performance. In other organizations, it's psychological safety. All of those in any organization are great, but there are ones that are kind of higher priority. Operational excellence. We have a client that works in an industry where there's a lot of physical accidents, so like safety, physical safety in the work environment, right? These are people who are on oil rigs out in the middle of the ocean, using these tools to like really be aware of the procedures and staying focused and not being distracted in those critical moments. So finding, first of all, what is the organization priority and connecting these tools to deliver against that is a critical thing. Having sponsors and stakeholders who believe that a science-based approach to mental training is beneficial for the business and can, kind of provide air cover and sponsorship for it is really important. Having enthusiasts who are actually inside the company, not some outside speaker who's going to come in and be rah-rah, but somebody who's actually within the company who can carry it forward, who themselves are a practitioner, and over time become the provider themselves. Where we've seen the most success then, Amy, is when we have trained trainers inside companies who are company employees and who can train their colleagues and who can speak the language of the company and who know the culture of the company, and yet who are experts at science-based emotional intelligence. And when they can deliver that to their peers, it kind of goes like wildfire. That's what's happening with Google. That's what's happening in another client of ours, SAP. We have some government agencies that are training on this, and it's really helping them. Again, I think when it integrates as part of the culture of an organization through all those levers, then you really have impact.
So when have you seen it fail?
That's what I was going to say. When it becomes a one-off thing. When it becomes like, let's have a keynote about this. Thank you, that's so interesting. I felt wonderful as I experienced that for those 10 minutes. I'm much more relaxed. Thank you so much. And the analogy I like to use is like learning about the science of brushing your teeth. Brushing your teeth once and then kind of not doing it anymore.
Right.
You will not enjoy the benefits of what it means to brush your teeth on a regular basis. So, what I would say is that consider, if you're interested in this in your company, on your team, consider ways to really bring it in a sustainable way. And it doesn't necessarily mean you have to add all this stuff and do all, it could simply be the way you start a meeting. Once you're trained on it, right, like how to bring attention together collectively and individually, how to demonstrate the skills of emotional intelligence such as empathy, which is simply like perspective taking, right? Compassion. All of these things lead to greater trust and even psychological safety. And so, just like brushing your teeth though, they're skills. They're not words, they're not ideas. They're skills that can be trained and built. There's lots of research to suggest why that is, because they activate certain regions in our brain that allow us to empathize, that allow us to listen more effectively, and that allow us to direct and sustain our focus. So if we know by scanning people's brains that doing this particular exercise lights up this part of the brain responsible for focus, why wouldn't we do it on a regular basis?
Right.
And so that's what we aspire to do, provide those science-based approaches to these mental habits.
So anything else you want to share or tips that we didn't get to talk about?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Be a champion yourself. I'd say if you're interested in this, don't wait for someone to parachute in. Like, try it yourself, right? Try and fail. That's what good entrepreneurs do, right? And if you're bringing it to your organization, because if it's a personal interest, I think the best thing I can say is two things we always used to do at Google when we're trying to innovate fast, which is, first of all, ask for forgiveness rather than permission. So be a champion for yourself, ask for forgiveness rather than permission, and then launch and iterate. When I brought this in 12 years ago, I was a senior director at eBay, and I brought this in by simply starting to teach mindfulness to my colleagues, and a year, 2 years later, kind of it exploded. We had hundreds of employees. I couldn't do it anymore. We had to bring in some vendors to do it. But I didn't ask for permission, and I just, kind of went for it and learned along the way. So, I encourage you to explore it on your own if you're interested. And there's lots of great partners. Of course, talk to our institute. We're happy to talk to people about our curriculum. Search inside yourself. There is no doubt in my mind that it is kind of the next productivity and wellness hack, right? Because it's based on science. It's not a fad. Just like physical exercise, a certain amount of sleep, and a certain type of diet, we know scientifically improves the quality of life and performance. We now know mindfulness and emotional intelligence skills have equal benefits. So go after them. Bring them into your organization. Last thing is, most importantly, seek to exercise them yourself. You can't give what you don't have. And so I just encourage people to dive in.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.